Welcome, friends, to another edition of Economic Update, a weekly program devoted to the economic dimensions of our lives: jobs, debts, incomes, the growth of some parts of the world economy, the shrinkage of other parts, and how it impacts all of us. I'm your host, Richard Wolff. I want to begin by presenting to you some of the findings of the World Wealth Report. This very important periodic document took time out this year to take a look at the last 40 years, the period since 1980, of looking at what has happened in the world economy and what it tells us. So important are these results that the Harvard Business Review for the month of March 2018 devotes a long, detailed article to this wealth report. And what I'm presenting to you is a mixture of what the report contains and what the Harvard Business Review also has to say about it. Let's start at the top and then look at it with some detail. Inequality in the world has sharply worsened over the last 40 years. Let me explain. There has actually been a shrinkage of inequality, less inequality, when you compare countries to countries. Mostly that has to do with extraordinary improvement in the economic performance of China and then also India and Brazil. They have gotten relatively richer fast, and the rest of the world, particularly the older wealthy parts, Western Europe, North America, and Japan, have grown much, much more slowly, if at all. And so there's been a little less inequality country to country. But the price of that has been a staggering increase in inequality inside countries, literally all countries. Growing inequality in China, in India, as I will come back to, as well as in the United States, Western Europe, and Japan, and so on. That's what I want to talk to you about. Over the last 40 years, the share of income of the top 1% of people in the world, the richest 1%, in 1980, they together got 16% of the world's income. They were only 1% of the world's people. They got 16% of the world's income. By 2016, that share of the top 1% had risen from 16, which is what it was in 1980, to 20%. Wow, that means the rich got much richer. The rich got a bigger share. Not only did their income go up, but it went up faster than everybody else, so that everybody else had to make do with a smaller share. Let me look at this in some detail so you can see the most remarkable of it. From 1980 to the present, the income of the top richest 0.001%, that's really the richest of the rich in America, went up by 600%. You heard me right. From 1980 to 2016, the income of the richest 0.001% went up 600%. The bottom half of the American people, that's 160-odd million people, the bottom half saw no income increase at all over the last 40 years. That is, if you adjust the money they earned for the prices they had to pay, they went nowhere. I want to let that sink in. The richest people got an increase over 40 years of 600%, and the bottom half of the population saw no increase at all. In Europe, just to give you another kind of comparison, that top 0.001%, that income grew, but it grew 5 times more slowly than in the United States. The Europeans didn't experience the level of growth of the top at the expense of everybody else the way they did in the United States. So that the bottom half in Europe over 40 years grew by 26%. Over 40 years, that's not much, but it is better than zero, which is what their American equivalent, the lower half in America, was able to do. compare China and India. China grew much faster than India, but unlike India, it didn't have a growing inequality like the Indians did. Yes, inequality in China grew, but it grew much more slowly than the inequality of India. And that tells you as much about what is happening to divide Asia as any other statistic I can think of. In the United States, then, the bottom 50% income share decreased from 20% of total income to 10%. Let me drive that home. The bottom half of the American people lost half of the share of total income produced in America compared to 1980. It has been a disaster for the bottom half, which is the biggest clue I can give all of you about how to understand American politics right up through Mr. Trump. But where the Harvard Business Review article falls down is to explain why did this happen? What causes this staggering growth? But even before I do that, I want to use these data to make a powerful point. We have been told for the last century that capitalism is going to enrich the rich, yes indeed, but we're all going to benefit because it's all going to trickle down. The rich being better off will make us all participate in their good fortune. These statistics show for the last 40 years that is cold stone wrong. That doesn't happen. It doesn't trickle down. Here in the United States, even more dramatically than anywhere else in the world, the rich got much, much, much richer, and the poor went absolutely nowhere. Nothing trickled, my friends. If you want to help the people, the majority, the bottom 2/3 of this country, you're going to have to help them. You're going to have to deal with them. The notion that you can make the rich richer and feel good that it'll all trickle down is revealed by the last 40 years to be the phony-only story it always was. As to some of the reasons, in 1980, the United States had the highest minimum wage in the world. But since then, the minimum wage, again adjusted for prices, how much the minimum wage actually pays you versus the prices you have to pay, the minimum wage has fallen by 30%. Let me compare that to France, where the minimum wage has gone from 1980 to the present up by 300%. It's tripled. Let me drive it home again. In the United States, the real minimum wage fell by 30%. In France, it rose by 300%. We're not talking small differences here. There's a reason why the bottom half in Europe didn't fare as badly as the United States, because they're treated better. They have a national health service and a national health insurance program that helps them. Higher education is becoming more and more costly in America, requiring families to take out debt. In more and more European countries, higher education is becoming free, no charge at all. Let me give you a little example that struck me. When Bavarian policymakers, Bavaria is the southern part of Germany, tried to introduce small university fees in recent years, a referendum was called in which the Bavarian people fundamentally and overwhelmingly rejected the imposition of fees. The two parts of the world, Europe and North America, are different, and nowhere does it show in the less serious inequality growth in Europe than in the United States. But fundamentally, capitalism has shown itself in the last 40 years to be an engine of unequal economic development. It is not the alternative. The only reason capitalism temporarily, after the 1930s, made less inequality was the massive uprising of people across the world demanding a better treatment than what capitalism was giving them. And they got it for a while. The New Deal in America, social democracy in Europe. But as soon as capitalism could recover and resume its normal momentum, its normal way of development, inequality was the gift it gives. No trickle down. Inequality is the cost of the capitalist system for the majority. At this point, I want to make a usual break and remind you that we maintain two websites that we urge you to make use of. The first is rdwolff with 2fs.com, and the second one is democracyatwork.info. Both of them allow you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Both of them allow you to communicate what you like about this program, how you would like us to change the program, and so on. And both of them provide you with extra material. They are available to you 24/7, no charge whatsoever, ever.